Andrew, welcome to the Retail Whore podcast.
Thank you.
I am so excited to have you on. I found you also through Sarah Schwartz. We just talked about this, and I've kind of stalked you a little bit on your Instagram. I love I love your dad, that he helps you with your booth. I think that's amazing. But I love how out there and how in your face and how honest and like everything about your whole entire card line.
Yes. It's brutal. It's sassy, and it's just me.
I love it. I think now, like in your bio, you say that you drop the F-bomb a lot, which I already love you for that. But I part of having a line now, and I think the F-bomb and the sassiness, and also your cards are directed to a very big audience that does not have a lot of products or cards that are dedicated to them, which I love even more. So before we get into the interview, tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your brand.
Yeah, I'm Andrew. I am a Seattle-raised boy. I'm 25 and a half years old as of yesterday.
And a half.
Because it reminded me it was my half birthday. She's like, you're closer to 30 than your 20s officially. Okay, thank you. And I own That's So Andrew. I've done That's So Andrew for almost 3 years now. And That's So Andrew is a snarky stationery line that is made for the girls, gays, and nays. And trademark pending on that one.
Girls, gays, and nays. Well, I've got a trademark attorney if you need one.
That's great. I filed for my own, for That's So Andrew itself, and it's been 2 years, but it's finally published for opposition. It took forever.
Wow, I'm surprised because it's not like that's something that you can. It's much like mine. I really don't see a lot of people out there with the Retail Whore, as far as a name. So I feel like I'm kind of safe, but it seems like that would be kind of safe for you, but maybe not.
Yeah, no one's objected to it. They just took forever. So.
Yeah, that's what I understand. I heard it's also very expensive.
Yeah, I did it myself, and just to do it myself, it was $550. And I got quoted by a lawyer. It was $2,200.
Yeah, it is definitely a lot. But from what I understand, they're the ones that help you push it through, so it doesn't take 2.5 years. But whatever. So tell me a little bit about growing up in your household. It sounds like you have the most amazing, supportive parents ever. But I want to hear a little bit about your childhood and how you ended up being you and That's So Andrew.
Oh, gosh. My childhood was pretty, overall good, but also a little rocky. My parents, Mark and Vicky, they've been divorced twice with each other, but never married.
What? That's amazing.
Yeah, they literally are a card line themselves if you just write their history. But yeah, they have been divorced twice. Never married. Their most recent divorce was when I was 5. So my childhood was spent with divorced parents, kind of flip-flopping between the two. And when I was in freshman year of high school, they started flinging again. And now they live together again. And now they're too old to find new love. Because my dad, we just talked about your age, but my dad's 70 years. I'm 60. And I'm like, y'all can't do another divorce. So work it out.
So they still have not gotten married?
No. My mom's never
dating.
Yeah. I swear once a week, my mom likes to bring up that he proposed to some 18-year-old girl in his 40s, but has never her ring. Yeah. They're fun. They're chaotic. We're not a super politically correct family. So language was never really talked about. We're not religious. So there was never really areas we couldn't talk about. It was a very open conversation of family. I think the only word I wasn't allowed to say growing up was cunt. So, which now my generation has completely reclaimed that word, and now it's a good thing. So,
yes. So when your parents, okay.
I know.
Divorced and they were together, they're divorced. So they've been together though, since you're 25 now. So for 20 years, they've been back together.
40 years, because my older brother's 39.
Wow, that's impressive, though. I have to say, as something that's, quote, old, it's super impressive that they've been together that long and not married. That's incredible. That's probably actually why they've lasted so long.
Yeah, but they were legally divorced because in Washington State, you live together for 9 years. You're considered, you have divorced. I can't common law or whatever it's called. Yeah, my mom, they'd be rich if they didn't get divorced twice because my mom took my dad for everything he had twice.
Wow, that's amazing. And yet they're together now and they love each other. I love it.
Yeah, my dad's counting down until it's 8 years and 11 months, and he'll probably kick her out for a month to reset the 9 years.
Oh my God. So you were strong-headed, you were mouthy, you liked to cuss, and you were, what was the phrase that I was dying on? Mostly homosexual.
Mostly.
Mostly.
Where? Yeah.
For your card.
Yeah, mostly in high school. I dated girls until I was like 17. I grew up in the Seattle area, but like greater Seattle. So it's more like suburbs of a sub-city. And it's a pretty like, or at least growing up, it was a very like hick Republican dominated town. So there was like one gay person in my entire high school. So it wasn't something I felt comfortable coming out as. And I was also a super late bloomer. So hormones didn't really, like I was 4'11" until I was 17 years old. No growth spurt, no nothing. So it all came in like a freight train the summer going into junior year. And in a matter of 2 months, I was like, oh, I do not like girls at all. Okay, it all makes sense.
I love that. And your parents are totally supportive.
Oh yeah. When I didn't come out until I was almost 21 when I publicly came out and like told my parents and stuff. And it was only because I fell in love with a boy and wanted to tell them about it. And my mom literally laughed and my dad was like, do you have any actual news to tell us?
Like they obviously already knew.
I mean, I'm pretty flamboyant. It was not. My sister's best friend texted me when I came out like on Instagram and she's like, the closet door was made of glass, sweetie.
I love that. Well, I'm in Manhattan Beach, which is nickname is Manhattan Bleach. It's very Republican. And I think, a couple of the guys, I still think they've never come out because of, the shame or their parents and it's like, it just seems like such a heavy burden to carry. And I love when I hear stories about coming out and your parents accepted you and it was just like, okay, you're free to be who you are, and everyone around you loves you and supports you, and there's none of the bullshit that comes with that statement. And I loved when I heard that your parents are supportive, and seeing your dad at the gift show with you, creating your gift show booth with you, I loved, and that told me a lot of how supportive they are.
They really are supportive. My dad's like my number one supporter of my business. When I was 18, I've kind of been a serial entrepreneur my whole life. And when I was 18, I was starting a business and he wrote me a check for $5,000 and said, you have 24 months to pay it back. Like he's definitely been the advantage I have of like supporting me. I also use his garage as like a storage unit. And so financially, but also like I run all my business decisions by him. When I went to apply for my first trade show, I was like, Dad, they want $4,000 for me to exhibit in Vegas. And he's like, that's fucking nuts. And I was like, okay, but here's what could happen. And he's like, I guess you could try it.
Did you show in Vegas?
Yeah, my very first trade show was last January, or not this last January, but the one before. And it was in Vegas. That was my like debut show.
Were you in Temps?
Huh?
Why didn't I see you? Because I do, my main hustle is I'm a merchandiser and a display design person for retailers and for showrooms at that building. So I'm in that building, like I have 4 jobs running in that building, and then I turn into a buyer and then I walk the show and I do temps and all that. And I don't know why I didn't see you.
And you may have. My booth was pretty lame. It was black and white, and I was right across the way from Golden Gems, if you've heard of them. They're a great business out of St. Louis, but their booth was bright pink and ominous, and it was competition. Great friends with them now. I love them. They carry my stuff in their 3 stores, but it was easy to walk by me is kind of the point I was making. So not anymore. My booth has changed a lot and is striking now, but
can't wait to get into that part of it. So tell me about your first business, because it sounded like you ran it, it was successful, and then you were like, okay, I'm done.
Oh my gosh. Well, it was like first 4, to be honest. The quick summary is from 14 to 16, I was a baker and did bake sales every weekend in front of my grandma's house.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
I went to school for baking. I have a baking associates in baking arts. I used to be a cake decorator and teach cake decorating classes to elementary kids. Um, and then, I had a candle business. I had a home decor business. And about 2 years into that home decor business, my sister-in-law and I went into business together, and we kind of rode that farmhouse decor wave. And so I was importing from China. I was designing my own products. She was making it at home, and none of that's in there because it's dead. It's behind me. It doesn't matter. And then 20, what year is it? 2019. That December, my sister-in-law and I kind of had a falling out, like business related. And I was like feeling like, oh, what I'm doing, I'm not enjoying. And I jumped into just designing mugs, which is when That's So Andrew was born. And it was just a ceramic mug line with the same snark and pizzazz to it. And then COVID happened very shortly after. Importing became a shit show. And my grandma was like, you should do cards. Like, my grandma's like 87. She's like, I want Christmas cards. I want funny Christmas cards. I'm tired of telling everyone that Jesus needs to bless them. Give me something. Like, literally was kind of the conversation we had. And I did. And they were a super success. And I sold like 3,000 Christmas cards, like out of these little vendor markets in like a month. And then from there, I just was like, oh, maybe I'll do wholesale, and just kind of played around with stationery for 6 months, launched wholesale. And now I'm like, holy fuck, I'm in 1,300 stores, all these other, like, it's crazy. I never predicted this was the route for me. But yeah, those other little businesses that all kind of led me to here. And now I'm finally like content and happy with this brand that I'm building. And I don't think I could have ever started this brand sooner because I wasn't really comfortable with who I was yet. And now it just all happened at the right time. Like, I really came into myself and kind of my identity as like a queer individual and snarky and loud. And I just fucking was like, let me just own it. And I guess I'm
So Andrew,
you commercialized myself. So
I have to unpack some of what you just told me about. I wasn't expecting the home decor, and I wasn't expecting the baker, and you left out the flight attendant as well. Like, okay, the baking thing. I used to ask this question on the podcast all the time. It used to be the first question was like, how old were you at your first job? And it's like, I realized the biggest hustlers and the people that have the most success and the most like passion and go-getters all started work like super young, 14, 15. I think we had someone 13. I started at 14. And that's very indicative of how your career created itself. I mean, how you created your career, because it's like you have that chutzpah, I guess.
Yeah. Honestly, if I tell my teachers what I'm doing now, they're like, oh, that makes so much sense, because I technically started my first business in middle school. I would buy the big Costco bags of suckers and sell them at school for 25 cents.
Total. I used to rip people's plants out of their front yards and I'd sell them in front of my mom's house.
Oh, so like, honestly, I've been doing things way before that, but my first like official job was 14, and my first like business that had a name was also like 14 and a half. So
what was the business's name?
Andrew's Bake Sale.
Love it. And then, okay, how do you jump from bake sale at that young? How do you jump into home decor? Because home decor, manufacturing out of China, it's not like you just maybe you did just on a whim. Like, I'm going to start. Like, how did you start that? And what was the path?
Okay, so it was 19 is how old I was when I placed my first import order, which is fucking nuts to think about. Because I don't know a single 19-year-old that has like the kahuna. I mean, even my work peers now, they're like, I'm so scared to import. I'm like, girl, I've been doing it since I was 19. It's fine. Like, how I started was I had a little epiphany in my life. I was making candles, had my candle company going. I just hated like the production side of it. It was so much work for so little money.
Yeah.
And I took off to Thailand for 30 days, and I met this person that does like importing, and they were doing like fulfilled by Amazon stuff, which didn't really interest me, but it was still like the same concept of importing. My sister-in-law and I were super into like the Ray Dunn era, if you are familiar with that cult.
Total cult. Total cult.
I'm only mentioned the highlights in that business selling. I also was flipping Ray Dunn like no other. Like
that shit. I mean, it's still slightly mind blowing that you'll go into. For those of you who don't know what Ray Dunn is, and if you don't, get out from under your rock. But Ray Dunn is the ceramic line that I only know from Home Goods, so I don't know if she had like some.
No, it just
Home Goods.
A blogger found her stuff at TJ Maxx / Home Goods, same company basically, and posted it, and it just became a very slow build craze. And it was all the Instagram home decor bloggers, especially like that farmhouse era.
Yeah.
Gains bullshit that just made it pop off. And I was at grand opening, like not grand openings. Every morning I was at the openings of a TJ Maxx and Home Goods 4 days a week.
That's there.
I was buying mugs for $3 and flipping them for $30-$40. It was insane. And I was 19 and I was fighting old ladies that would cry when I'd get the stuff before them.
I love what a hustler that is. I mean, that's like,
girl,
that is fucking brilliant.
Yeah. But I flipped a lot of Ray Dunn and I saved a significant amount of money. I was also doing the candle gig and I had like $3,000 or something saved up. And because of that connection to Ray Dunn and Farmhouse, as in all these other Facebook groups too, and I noticed tiered trays starting to pop off.
Tiered trays, like,
yeah, just like the little,
yeah.
I have like 1,000 of them in my garage still, but I noticed tiered trays starting to pop off, and this random like girl was selling them in one of these Facebook groups, and nobody was really buying them because they didn't know who she was. But I had the reputation of a mofo for delivering, like speeding, like everyone got their stuff. I wasn't this random scammer on Facebook. Like I had a reputation in the community. And I Googled how to import a little bit after talking to that one guy back in Thailand. The timing would just worked out. Found the things on Alibaba, ordered a sample, and then I ordered the very minimum, which was 500 trays, and it was terrifying. It was like $5,500. I had 3,000 of my own, and then my dad loaned me the rest of the money. And then my dad drove his trailer down to the port to offload 3 pallets of merchandise. And I ran them all as a pre-sale, and I had all of my money recouped before the trays even hit my door.
Oh my God, that is amazing.
It was a screaming deal for them. And this was pre-COVID, so things were a lot cheaper. Shipping was cheaper. Like, I think my landed cost on a tray was like $15. I pre-sold them for $35, and once they were in stock, they'd be $60. So they'd save half off in theory for pre-ordering, and they'd 3 to 4 months for it. So I was making a killing.
How do you think of doing the pre-sale? I mean, naturally? How did you know that?
I honestly think it came from my baking background, because it's so common in the baking industry to run pre-sales for holidays and stuff, for your cookies and your special things. And so it honestly just was second nature to me, I think. So
fucking brilliant. And you're 19?
I was 19. Yeah.
I think about what the fuck I was doing at 19. And it's like, oh my God. I think it was like waiting tables. Like, that is like so impressive.
I was also waiting tables all through up until I was right up until the second year of COVID. I was serving tables on the weekends because I just made such good money.
Yeah, I do. I hate to say it. Like, I really do. I think waiting tables teaches you some really good customer skills that, especially dealing with assholes. And then, or when you make a mistake, being able to like schmooze them with like, oh, I got you a free piece of pie, and then you get that big tip still because you came through with a free piece of pie.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how I got started importing. And not that this isn't impressive, but you sprinkle on. I also was a full-time student, also working probably 25 hours at a serving job. I usually worked Thursday through Sunday. So there was a lot going on. And like reflecting now, my social life definitely suffered.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Yeah, that was probably the sacrifice I made to make the money. And yeah.
So how many things did you have on your line at the end of the day when you decided not to do it anymore? How many items?
Home decor. I think I have 15 different trays and then 12 different accessories for the trays. So it was like a 25 SKU catalog. But they're like higher price point things. So, but my very last order that I made was, I ordered a $60,000 container from China in 2022.
And do you still have the product?
I have about a quarter of the container left. It's in my garage. So yeah, I have like 1,000 trays left. And honestly, I have an Etsy shop and they're always half off. And I've just been selling through the inventory for the last 2 years.
I can't get over how many things you're involved in. It's amazing. It's like, I know I have fucking ADD, but Jesus Christ, like that's like, it's like, I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah. And honestly, I wish, like, I've contacted TJ Maxx like 4 times. I'm like, please just take them all. Like, I don't want to see them anymore. The only reason they came in so late, I ordered them in like beginning of 2020, and I didn't get them till 2022 because of COVID.
Yeah.
If I could go back, I would have never ordered it because I didn't know how different my business direction was going to go and how that surrender would just become exactly what I needed for a business. So it's not regret. It's just, if I knew now what I knew then,
Oh, I mean, like, trust me, you're still super young. You got a lot of those moments coming down the line.
The inventory, and once they're gone, rest in peace. It was an era.
So during COVID, is that when you started It's So Andrew?
Yeah, 2020.
So because I've had several stationery people on. It's like, are you doing the graphics yourself or do you have somebody else?
So I'm familiar with a lot of people that they work with artists. They just have concepts and other people bring them to life. I am not a talented illustrator by any means. That's not my forte. My talents lie in my copywriting. I write everything myself, or even if it's something that you may have, like, if it's a popular quote that's just selling pop culture, other things, I always twist it into my own way that I'd say something, which I think is an important way to rework an industry that everything's already been done before. I feel like nothing's original anymore, especially in like the art world and the era of like TikTok and media and all these things. So I think my copywriting, the way I rework things into my own, and then, all the designing and graphic layout of the fonts and everything, it's all me. So
did you know how to do that before? Because I'm assuming it's on
self-taught. I started my company with a $9 Canva subscription, and I still use Canva to this day for about 60% of my work. This January, I introduced Illustrator and promised myself that I would only design on Illustrator exclusively this year forward. And I've been doing really, really good. But like my catalog, I still do on Canva, and like I have like over half my products are Canva files still. So, yeah.
So Canva. I'm ADD, and I've got multiple things going, and I have a really hard time learning because I'm dyslexic and ADD. So are you like, can you sit there and study something on like learning how to use Canva and do it? Or is it trial by error?
It is. I'm just figuring it out. Illustrator, I will watch mini tutorials, like a 2-minute max on certain, like something I want to do that I know can be done. So like the other day, I literally had to look up how to make like a 4-point star, like a twinkle star is what I was trying to make. And it was 6 buttons to make a twinkle star, like 6 different things you had to do. So like those type of things, I'll Google or like I'll YouTube and figure out like what buttons I'm supposed to click. But for the most part, it's just figuring it out. I took one graphic design class in college that kind of helped with like a little bit of a base. But I'm still learning every single day. Illustrator is an absolute beast. Canva is way more intuitive and easier.
I can't use either. I mean, in Canva, I tried. We had my best friend was our my digital marketing director, and she knows me like inside out. Like I am not tech savvy. I've tried to learn. I can't even say I've tried to learn Canva. I've started it and I was like, fuck, I can't do this, and I just drop it and leave it. So I've hired people to do it for me. But it's always interesting to hear people that have a lot of balls in the air, like how you learn to use specific platforms and whatnot, because I can't watch a video and like try and apply it. I can't even remember what they talked about in the beginning of the video, let alone try and apply it.
Yeah, it's, I don't really have anyone, well, up until about a year ago, I didn't really have anyone in the same industry as me or even similar concepts. Like I have one good friend and she does pottery full time, and she had a slight graphic design background, and really she she would just tell me if things look good or not, like after I design them. Like that was the feedback I was getting. So it was extremely self-taught. I had to teach myself how to design websites like via Shopify, how to work SEO. Like it's insane how much of this like journey of entrepreneurship is just self-taught and hoping shit works.
I think that's the best way, to be honest. I mean, I've always said like, just jump. I mean, you can figure it out. I mean, I have jobs where it's like, we'll figure it out. Like,
I mean, serving is. They're like, just
yeah,
do it. Like, it's fine. Like I do just do it. I probably take a little extra time to get there, but yeah. And like I've met people, like my sister's boyfriend has a business degree, and I'm like, what's your take on SEO or on this other thing? And he's like, oh, we didn't learn that. And I'm like, what the fuck do you learn in business school? He's like, how to do like accounting and things. I'm like, I don't want to do that.
No.
That is the first thing. When I had a little money, I said, accountant, hired, done. Yeah. I don't want to do my books. I don't want to
lane to stay in, which is very smart.
Yeah. And I don't want to fuck it up. The government scares the shit out of me.
So tell me, you start your line, you did the Christmas cards. When you started and you did the Christmas cards and you sold them, were they starting out that snarky, or did they start out kind of like tame and then they just ramped up?
No, I know I'm hard to track. So I had the mug line of Snark. I knew Snark was successful. The mugs were very pop culture reference, like Mean Girls quotes, and my best-selling Christmas mugs were the Christmas Vacation quotes, if you've seen that movie. And so I just kind of translated that into cards. And I used the same font for everything. It was a font that I designed myself. It's just my handwriting. Don't ask me how I learned to do that. I can't even remember. I don't know. I couldn't do it again. And so, yeah, I just said, people want it. People want to laugh. So I just ran with it. And like, I'm not the first person and I'm not the last person to put fuck on a card. I feel like everybody puts fuck on a card these days. And
they sell out.
They do sell out. But also, there's a way to put fuck on a card. And there's sometimes where it's just like, fuck doesn't even belong on that card. And there's like, I feel like people struggle to find the balance between when to use a fuck or a shit or a bitch or a whore or no swear words at all. Like, I think the hardest thing is trying to crack a joke without using like a curse word. It makes everything.
Yeah.
You talk to people and they're like, that's what we want. We want.
I have a hard time because if you've been listening to this, or anybody that's listened to this, you know when I'm super comfortable with somebody because I'm like F-bombs are flying out, and you know when I'm a little bit more reserved that I'm not as comfortable. And it's like, it's funny because that's just innately who I am. And I realize that you're either part of the tribe or you're not. Like just the name alone of the podcast, it's like, it's either you're down with it or you're completely offended. This is like one or the other.
There's no in between.
No. And I'm okay with that. I mean, I thought about changing it, and too many people are like, really, I wouldn't. That's what makes the difference of like your podcast. And as one of my friends said, the old white man retired retail podcasts that are like boring and they're all about numbers. And this is really more about the retailers and wholesalers and how they got there. And like, that's what I think that's the difference of this podcast and why F-bombs are totally welcome here.
Your name is the only reason I even looked twice at, and it like when it came across my Instagram. I was like, did I read that right? And then I clicked. I was like, yeah, right, I did. And I like, if it didn't have the word whore or some sort of joke in it, I would have never like investigated further.
I love it. See, you're part of the tribe. So with your line, like, what are some of the top, like when you're spinning some of like today's pop cultures, like give us some examples of how you're twisting them. And do you have any samples that you can share? Because this is going YouTube and this is also audio. So if you have, if you don't worry. I didn't prep you on any of that. So,
yeah, I can grab stuff in a sec. I mean, like when it comes to creating things, I keep a running note in my phone of like, everyone in my family and in my friends, they know if we say something funny after it, you go, that's a card. And I just keep an ongoing note, or I'll look on Pinterest, or I see funny things on TikTok. And I'll just kind of I'll write it down and then I'll go, okay, how would it have came out of my mouth? And that's really how I'm reworking things into my own. But then there's other things that are just super blunt. Like one of my best-selling cards says, "Happy birthday, you stupid bitch." That's probably a line that came out of my mouth. Like it probably did. It's probably in a text message somewhere. They're blunt and they're fun. And I think the goal is just to not be mean-spirited for sure.
I love that.
I like, there's cards that make fun of, like, I don't really like, there's cards that make fun of like people's weight and things like, oh, now you can get all fat and sassy eating all this food. And it's just not my vibe. Or I think being in the like niche of queer people, it's very the line of poking fun or like joking about stereotypes versus where it's actually just offensive. There's a huge line, like it's such a thin line. I think being like cautious is something that is difficult to do because everyone's line's different.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'll probably one day make a card that people go, oh, oh.
I mean, truly, like, I think that I love that there's not mean-spirited, but I feel like anybody that pushes the envelope, you're going to have, like, that's how you're pushing the envelope. It's like, how far what state are you in?
Washington.
Do you have a lot of the book banning situation, all of the stuff that's going on, and how do you feel like your products are going to fall? I've never asked this, but fall into that. This, I will say it, and for those of you who don't believe, but it's like, it's fucked up. Sorry, but it's like, what is your take on that with your brand?
On like,
just that they're banning books. It's like, to me, things like cards, like, it's banned for children, which I understand, but I wonder where that line is with some things. And it's like for the stores that carry all these items, gay, binary, like all of the items for that demographic, as well as all the cuss, it's like there's a lot of what's going on in the world right now is not very favorable to that. And it is a big part of the country. And it's for the stores that carry it and that are like, we're carrying this. This is who we are. It's like, what do you feel like? And I can't believe I'm saying this. And if you're not comfortable answering it, like,
I feel like I don't do a lot of political merchandise, but I did recently have a little bit of let's think of the word, an encouragement from my inner self to kind of speak about some things. And so just recently I released a sticker that says ban guns, not TikTok, stop or keep abortion legal. Like I kind of made the stance on the basic things. Or one of my favorite ones is, yes, one of my favorite stickers, which was like an original thought of mine, was Jesus doesn't care if a boy kisses a boy. That's just you weaponizing religion.
I love that.
It's become a very like popular sticker that people react to. So I mean, like short way of answering them is like, fuck off. Like there's so many other things to be worried about that I don't know why such a huge portion of the country is focusing on like drag. Like
I know.
It doesn't even make sense to me that that's where so much concern lies. And the banned books, total bullshit anyways. Like I read all of those books growing up. Like they're not harmful, they're history. And then they like Florida banning the word gay in school. I'm like, it doesn't accomplish anything. There's still gay people. There's still kids in your class that have two dads or two moms. And to me, it's just, I think people are wasting their energy when there's a lot of other things that we could be fixing in this country. Like, not to go a dark route, but you have like, oh, my husband brought me product samples. Thank you.
Yay, thank you.
We grabbed me one of the little pocket journals too. But like we literally have schools getting shot up. We have people getting killed. We have people living on the streets starving to death.
Yeah.
You're concerned about a dude in a dress when at the same time you take your kid to Disneyland where Peter Pan is usually a girl. It's literally just reverse drag. You know what I mean? Like Mickey Mouse is a 30-year-old white man under costume. Like,
I'm glad that you're having a stand with your product because I think that, my friend at Cursive has a store in New York. Do you sell to Cursive?
No.
Amazing.
We met at the last show in February.
Lovely. He and his husband have 2 stores and
One more time.
You what?
He's watching this or listening. You should look at my line one more time.
Yes, Michael. But it's, he's like, we never felt like we needed to put a gay flag out when the lady that was shot in her store for putting a gay flag out in her own store for something that she believed that was close to her. And to lose your life over that, I think, that made a lot of people step back in the gift industry and like, wait a minute, like, and I think Michael had said, like, we never felt like we needed to fly the flag, but I really like, we're going to now. And it's like, I think that a lot of people don't feel like they need to put it out there, but I sort of feel like you should. And I sort of feel like that's who you are and that's what you believe in. And it's like, why not? Like, you're going to piss off people no matter what you do or what you say. And I think that if you stay in your lane about what you do and what your line is, I think that is only going to strengthen your line and who you are. And it's like, I always, I understand what people don't for retailers or something like that. Everyone, does. I mean, I wore this sweatshirt on an interview and I think after it aired, I think I lost like 5 or 10 Instagram followers. And it's like, that's fine. Like, that's my belief. Like, and everyone has their own belief. But I think if you believe it, stand out there and say it and stand out there and step up to the mic and project it and stand up for who you are and for what you believe. And I love that you are doing that.
I think from a retailer perspective, especially, which I was a retailer up until yesterday. I had a pop-up store for the last year.
Oh my God. You really missed a lot of shit on your bio.
There's nothing like for me, like anytime I went to the Dallas market last year and I felt so uncomfortable being in Dallas just because of what I know about Texas. And I randomly Ubered to this spot to eat dinner. It was like a pasta place. And I ended up in the gay district of Dallas. And it's like seeing just a little like line of pride flags in a few windows. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get hate crime here. Like, and I'm a straight presenting white man until I opened my mouth. So for the most part, I'm a safe individual. So I couldn't imagine being a person of color and gay or some other combination of like, my husband calls it double minority because he's brown and gay. He's like, I'm a double. And it's just like I felt instant relief in that area of like, I feel safer here. On top of that, from retailing gay products in the store that I just was in, the store owner's like, I've never had people in here. Like, I've never had gay couples shopping in here. I've never had lesbians or anything like that. And then 6 months after you get here, I find people, I have 2 girls holding hands and the gays shopping in here and, loving that you have pride stuff in your booth 365 days a year. And she's like, and I see them all the time.
Yeah.
I think once honing in on a niche to me is more, and being authentic is more important because the customers you gain from that are going to be so much more loyal. If I walk to a store and they're selling Trump shit, I'm walking out. Yeah, I'm not $1 of mine. I don't care if you have Biden right next to it. That person caused harm to my community. I'm not.
Yep.
And I used to think differently. I used to sell political stuff and I was like, oh, I'll just design for both sides. And I feel super different now that it's just, you have to, especially in the climate that we are now, which is sad, unfortunately, and I disagree with where we are. But I think it's important for retailers to say, like, get your gay ass in here. Like, we love you. You're welcome here. And they really are such a, like, loyal community. And not just the queer community. I can't speak on behalf of others, but there's so many people that are targeted even more than someone like me is. And it's like, they just want a safe place to shop. And if they feel that way, they're going to tell their friends. They're going to tell their other, it's word of mouth is way more powerful than anything
100%
people can do. So, it just takes one person with a TikTok following to walk in and be like, I found this cutest store in New York called Cursive and they had a gay flag and all this gay stuff. And now you have a flock of people coming. It's crazy the power that what you present can really affect your success.
And I think it's also being true to who you are. But I think, like what you just said is that word of mouth is everything. And it's, and having a safe place. Because I'll be honest, like when I go shopping and it's like when there is the card section of all like, gay, queer, like what it's like, to me, it's like, that person's open-minded and it's like they are part of your tribe. You're on the same wavelength. And I think that's those who are, I think it's very important that you fly that flag. I think it's super important. And I think that only is going to benefit your business. And like you said, give people a safe place to shop. Because I never really thought about that, like what it would be like to be any gay female or male and to go into cities that are not as open. Because I live in California where it's very liberal. It's like, it's the most liberal place on earth. And when I go out of state, I always get oh, you're from California. It's like, I am. It's like, and I'm super liberal. And it's like, even before conversation starts, like, just let you know, I'm super liberal. But I think that's important. So that's why I'm sorry to go down that road, but I had to ask.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have a lot of retailers that listen. So
we do. We have a lot of retailers listen.
If you're on the fence about it or even thinking about it, do it. The 3 loud people that are going to tell you they hate it will never measure up to the support that you'll get from it. That's what I tell people.
Well, I think a lot of people that already carry F-bomb stuff, because like you haven't heard very much of the podcast, but I talk about a store. Like I am a retail consultant as well. And I will, there's a pharmacy that, that does shit tons of business of gift. And so we started bringing in like little bits of twisted wear with F-bombs here and like the drag queen stuff and like little bits. And it's like over and over, it was the top, F-bombs were the top selling thing. So then I did as what buyers do. You follow the sales, and I started adding in more and more and more until one day it was like, I guess it was a Saturday, and this old guy comes in and he's standing in the section, and we had it kind of spread out, but we also had it kind of together. So, he's standing there and he lifts up whatever, I think it was a twist of words towels. And he's like, this is why children are shooting each other. And it was like that one, it was like everyone was okay. Like, we know people are going to complain about it. It's fine. There's the few, but that one event is what it was like, okay, we can't lose pharmacy orders over gift products. And as much as we know, it all sells. So that was the end of the F-bombs, but F-bombs and like that sells. And if you are selling F-bomb products, try some of these cards of this, like, because it is the same audience. I hate to say it, but it is the same audience that's going to appreciate it.
Yeah, there's an extreme overlap. Yeah, and a lot more people cuss than don't.
Oh. Maybe not as frequent as us, but
a lot more people say fuck than the people who don't. Like, it's just true. Like, people are tired of the bullshit, and there's something so authentic about hearing things that sound like what someone's going to say. It's in our social media. It's in the movies we watch. Like, people say fuck. And like, it's only America that it's a weird thing. You go to Britain or Australia, they say a lot more than fuck. Like, yeah. It's wild. But there's always going to be a couple that are, I call them pearl clutchers.
What clutcher?
Pearl clutchers.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's a good term for this. So take me through the decision from going and selling your cards and being retail to taking it to wholesale. Like, who walks you through that, or did you Google this as well?
Haven't you learned anything? Nobody walks me through anything.
You Googled it as well.
Girl, let me tell you, I started on FAIR and I got approved for FAIR December 31st of 2020. What year is it?
Smack in the middle of the pandemic.
2020. And I'm sorry, 2021. And I exhibited at a trade show 29 days later in Vegas.
Okay, I have so many questions. So
I didn't know how else to wholesale. Like, in my experience of the home decor world, like, I had gone to Vegas Market a couple times just to walk the show and get like inspiration. I didn't know there was I didn't know I could pitch stores. I didn't know that FAIR actually was going to make me money. I didn't know all of these things. So I'm like, if I'm going to do wholesale, I'm going to do a trade show. And I have one friend, his business called Uber Chic. He sells these cute benches. And he sold in Vegas. I saw him once there and he's like, oh, it's like 16 grand to be here. So I always thought it was unattainable. I sent an email, I applied, I got in. I was like, great, I'm doing a trade show. That's it. Like, and I came from doing retail markets before, so it didn't really scare me. Yeah. The concept of doing design and setting up a booth. It was just the $4,500 check that I had to write that was terrifying. And looking back now, my prices, like, not everything was wrong, but everything was very not an industry standard. I looked at other competitors. I said, oh, you're selling cards for $250. I'm going to sell them for $225. And you're selling yours in packs of 6. I'm going to sell them in 4. I'm going to make it easier for people. And it took about 4 months for me to learn that I was just leaving money on the table at that point. I did 6 trade shows my first year in wholesale business. I hit them all.
So you're doing production and try. So you have, because my question is always like, you show up at a wholesale show and you, like, to me, it's like you're showing goods. Like, do you have enough goods if you get sales across the board? What if you sell out? Like, that's always, because now with the TikTok shop, I've talked to a couple people that are like one that's an agent for TikTok influencers that gets them deals with AI Greens and Nike. And, she was talking about how like TikTok shop is going to be the next Amazon, whether anyone likes it or not. And my question is always to my friends when I'm like, you should do this, but make sure if you only have 6 of these, it goes as a flash sale versus, throwing it up on TikTok, because you could quite possibly do $20,000 with just this. And do you have the inventory to support it? Because don't they have like a 3-day turnaround to make sure it gets out to the customer?
I'm on it, but I haven't turned anything on because I just don't have the bandwidth to do it.
It is like no joke. That is the Amazon of the future. Like that is turn it on.
Yeah, it's I'm not home enough right now to even ship orders in 3 days. So, but I wrote orders.
How much?
I'm trying to remember your question at the beginning. I wrote orders at Vegas for inventory I didn't have. I took it all. I didn't say no to a single thing. And at the time, I was printing everything at home on my home computer.
Okay.
Printer. So I spent 2 weeks working after the Vegas show, making things. And I will never, ever, ever make things again. That's my biggest advice to everyone is stop fucking making things yourself and outsource. Because it is not worth your time. And I understand there's like exceptions to this, especially in my industry. There's a lot of people that letterpress and do all these fancy things. But if you're producing digital printed cards, you need to find a printer to make them. And every product that I source now and that I release, I am not touching it. I don't want to package it. I don't want anything. So I just released pocket journals.
Let's see.
And I ordered them pre-shrink wrapped in packs of 6 so that I don't even have to count them when I ship them. And this says archives of all the flying fucks I should give. There's little pocket journals, but they come to me ready to go in a box. I don't have to do anything there. And if the pricing doesn't make sense, like for example, to have these shrink wrapped, it was 25 cents. If it didn't make sense in the margins, then I wouldn't have just done the product. But that 25 cents saves me hours and hours of time. I just hired an employee that does my fulfillment. It's going to save me a shit ton of money because they can shrink wrap 6 of these way faster than my employee ever could. And so I just think I'm sorry I got on a tangent about outsourcing.
Well, no, it's smart to say, like, instead of you doing it, I think a lot of people in the beginning have to do it just because, you're not, it's a lot of money to put out for anything to be outsourced. But I think you've already obviously done it with several different ventures. But I always wonder when you're doing that many shows, you're obviously writing orders that you don't have them running for yet. But, is that somewhat of a panic moment of like, it's an awesome, like, oh my God, we took all these orders. Oh my God, we don't have any of this inventory.
It is a panic. I will say it fucked me a couple times that first year. Dallas and Atlanta were so close together. I only had a week home in between the two. Yeah. And I was really quite successful at my first Atlanta show. And I quoted everybody 2-week turnarounds, and it ended up being 5. Mm-hmm. Could not make things fast enough. And honestly, those relationships that I damaged from shipping so late, I didn't repair all of them. It really wasn't, people thought that I was just ghosting, taking their money and running. Not that I wasn't communicating, but a lot of people I haven't been a super involved buyer in a long time, but it's scary when you give someone an order and you give them their credit card and then nothing comes, Yep. Don't blame the people, even though I'm sending email. Also, as a buyer, how many of your emails do you see? You know what I mean? Like, I could have sent an email every day, but if you're not seeing it, you're like, it's a red flag. And so, I think I wanted to do what I wanted to do. It was out of the control of what I actually happened. So I wanted to get everything to people in 2 weeks. Like, to me, that seemed like such a long time, anyways. But yeah, it was crazy. And it probably cost me at least 10 accounts that would still be ordering today. It's
some of the bumps and bruises that you go through that when you are flying, you're doing it yourselves. And it's like, that's part of that trial and error. There are some harsh lessons, but those are the best lessons you're ever going to get. And if that's the worst of it, then, that's the worst of it. But I think that is part of trial and error for sure. When you're doing because I've talked about this before on the show, is that there are shows that are easy to set up in temps. Las Vegas being one of them, because it's not union. New York now, not so easy. It's union. So what were the challenges that you had of now setting up and breaking down these booths and going show to show, especially Atlanta and Dallas, where they're a week apart from each other?
I mean, it was very like draining mentally. But because of the product I sold, which is small and lightweight, I was just shipping everything show to show. I wasn't shipping it on a pallet, which I guess should have for ease and for peace of mind. But I was just I shipped it UPS and I brought more UPS labels with me and I'd reuse the same boxes. And from Dallas to Atlanta, it went. And I mean, I didn't really run into any errors. My display was designed to be easy and a one person setup. And I'm really efficient too. So it was like 4 hours, which sounds like a lot to some people. But if you ever set up a trade show booth, 4 hours is like nothing. And 2 hours of that's probably painting. So I think the biggest learning curves and things to consider is all of these shows offer wall options and pre-existing walls, which I took advantage of, but they're all different and they all have different specs and they're all different heights. And so like Dallas, I probably got fucked the most because their walls aren't actually something you can screw into. So I duct taped everything to the walls. Oh. Like I got there and I was like, I have no idea what to do. Everything's meant to be screwed in. And so I Ubered to a store and I got duct tape and command strips, and the entire week in Dallas, you hear the rip of the tape, and it's just why I'm in the middle of writing orders, sticking my little card racks back up. So I think having people that have done the shows or like creeping, like now I would probably go back and like look at pictures of people at Dallas booth and be like, oh, that's what the walls look like. In New York is a show I don't recommend to people. The labor is messy. I recommend just bringing a drill and doing it until you get in trouble, honestly.
I've talked to people, like one of my friends Karen Arwal. She has a massive space, and they were trying to sneak so much that they actually planted a Marshall in her booth that just sat there to watch. They don't fuck around. Like New York now does not fuck around. Like it is. And that's when you start hearing this, you start hearing a lot of the interviews with wholesalers. Everybody talks about like the product not coming, not being able to making these Uber trips to Target or wherever at the 11th hour, and realizing you have to carry everything in because you can't. I mean, it's like I always talk about to the retailers that you have no idea when you get to the show and the person's there and they're all happy and they look rested and they're you have no idea what they have gone through to get that.
Yeah.
I mean, and then we all, everyone goes to dinner and, does the show, and we're all as buyers so tired. But what no one realizes that everyone that does these temps and these shows, like they all have to break it down and pack it up and then go to another show. And I always try to say to retailers, like, when you go to these booths, like have some compassion and patience for the persons behind the booth, because all of the things they had to do to get it to that morning on that day, up shiny, happy, I'm here to sell, is a lot.
Yeah, it is. I usually spend, like now that my booth's more intensive, I usually take a red eye into Atlanta because that's the only show I really do now. Red eye to Atlanta. I set up the walls that day. I sleep. And then the next day, I do all the product and all the staging and all the getting ready. And then it's selling for 5 very, very long days of not to be a bitch to everybody by day 3, like I do them alone. Like I can't afford to pay for labor. So I do them alone and I try to treat everyone as good as I am. And then when everyone's dead on the last day, the buyers included, and it strikes noon, I have to pack that whole thing up. And it is a lot. And I'm usually crazy and I'll book a flight for like 9 p.m. that night. And so if it's not in the pallet by 6 p.m., it's getting thrown away and I'm getting on an Uber to the airport. Like
it is no joke. Does your husband travel with you?
He comes to hang. He does help. This last time I agreed to pay for his ticket if he would help me set up my walls and if he'd help me tear down. I'm like, and just come bring me lunch every day. So that was the requirement. His best friend lives in Atlanta, so they hang out and they see each other. He is very supportive, but also we kind of have this predetermined line of like, I don't go to work to help him, so I try not to ask him to come to my work and help me. The trade shows are kind of the exception to that. I'm like, if you're coming and I'm paying for your flight, you got to do something.
You need to help me. Come on, honey. So when you first did your first booth, the one that you said that was, got walked by so much, what is the difference? What did that booth look like versus what your booth looks like now?
My first booth was black and white is the easiest way to call it. The walls were white. I had black shelving. I framed the walls in black, and it looked very sleek. It kind of gave like newspaper vibe. But you're in a sea of thousands of booths, especially like Atlanta. There's so many things. I mean, Vegas too. There's 3 buildings. You have to do something to look fat, and so I did 3 shows with white walls. And then I started painting. My first time in Atlanta, I just painted the walls rainbow, like vertical stripe. So I had like a 26 long booth. So I made like a pastel rainbow, which did, it catches people's eyes. It also screams like, it was kind of screaming like LGBT, but like on not vibrant rainbow neon or in a pastel way. And I've never not painted my walls since. I think if you're going to do a trade show, which I could do a whole podcast episode on just doing trade shows, paint your fucking walls. I literally paint your walls. And now my current booth, which is a custom built booth, my dad helped me do it. It's gorgeous. I rebranded, like did a whole branding package that I outsourced to this designer in Spain. And now it's all black and it has my accent color, accents, and pops of color, and it just looks sleek. It looks clean. It's still colorful, and it's hot. It really is. So
it's like when I was stalking your Instagram, I was like, I can't wait to see, because I think you were setting up and you were talking about the new booth and the new colors. And I mean, my heart is in show setup. So it's like, I always love to see how people's booths have like emerged from like the very beginning when it's like all new and it looks not rinky dink, but you can tell it's new. And then how it progresses and what it looks like at the, like Neil's Garden. Is it Neil's Garden? But this guy started this line, which way before John Darien started doing these photo paperweights. And he started this when he was like 8, and he was at shows when he was like a kid. And it was just, it looked like it wasn't like a professional booth, but now when you see him, like last year was his first show in Vegas, and it was so great to see him there and like how beautiful the booth is and how rich it is. And like, I mean, he's like a 40-year-old now, I think a 30-year-old now, but to watch his growth of his booth and his product and all that, it's always super cool to see from the outside.
It's amazing. I need to compile all my things into like a story highlight, and so people can see the changes, because it really is. It looks like 2 different people designed it. So
show season is coming up. I'm already in planning mode. So I'm guessing you've already signed your leases for where you're going to be. Where are you showing this January?
Signed my lease before I even left Atlanta. I'm just doing Atlanta in January. This month, I'm returning to my part-time work as a flight attendant for an airline, which we're not going to say who. And so I'm working on that to get some health insurance back. But it's just January is too hard to get time off. And I don't really want to do any other shows too. So I'm going to invest my show budget into kind of some other forms of marketing that I've been wanting to try. And just none of the other shows compare for me as Atlanta does. Atlanta is an insane show for me. So I'll be back to Vegas probably next summer. I was thinking about doing it. But you'll never see me in New York again. You'll never see me in Dallas again. So really it's just Vegas and Atlanta. So I'll always do Atlanta probably, and then throw in a Vegas here and there.
Atlanta's a great show. I will say, like, I adore that show. It's still one of my favorites. Vegas, I mean, how come have you looked into representation, or you're just going to stay?
I currently work with 4 reps. One's a rep group. They're independent bookstore reps. And then I work with this girl on the East Coast that does like DC and whatever those states are near it. I'm from the West Coast. I have no idea what they call their little pockets of shit over there. I didn't even know what New England was when someone told me that. But I've applied to this last market season in Atlanta. I applied to a couple of the bigger rep groups, and I got 2 no's from the 2 I wanted. So I'm open to representation for sure.
I mean, there's a bunch I could think of you in for sure that would be.
I don't know. I asked when I got the no's, because I interviewed with both of them. I asked for kind of feedback of what wasn't. And I know card lines are hard to get representation for because the order is usually so much lower than other lines that people carry. And none of them responded to what was it that didn't sell it for you. So I don't know what they want me to change. One of them was apply again in the future. So I don't know, maybe it's just my size is still too small. Or if I don't have, my catalog's 800 SKUs. So I don't think it's that. I don't know. I don't know what they exactly are looking for, but I'm also okay not having reps, but I'm if they come, they come.
Yeah, I think that it's you will find, but there's a few that I could think of that I could see you being in. But are you in temps in Atlanta?
Yeah, in the on-trend category.
I love that. That's a great space. And then Vegas, hopefully I will see you there next summer. I'm going to ask you the last 2 questions that I ask everybody is that because you being creative and slightly ADD like myself, where do you find the inspiration?
Oh gosh. Myself, I'm just fucking funny. No, I'm surrounded by people with similar sense of raunchy humor. And so I feel like I draw a lot from my friends, and I draw a lot from TikTok for sure. People say some out of pocket things on TikTok that I can't get it out of my head. We all have TikTok sound. If you watch TikTok, you have some audio in your head that's just stuck there. I draw from that. And then just when I see movies and one-liners or just writing trend waves myself, I'm not reinventing anything. So if I see that Mean Girls is coming back on the rise, I'm like, ooh, boo you whore. Throw out those iconic quotes, or I'll go rewatch the movie. And that's my design inspiration. And then my main motivation for my business is I don't want to fucking work for anyone else.
Amen to that.
I can't even, I need someone to tell me no in my everyday business decisions because I just want to do everything. And so, but if I ever actually had someone telling me no, it doesn't work for me.
I love this conversation. I love how young you are, and I always call it hustler, but it's so inspiring to talk to somebody. I'm going to sound super old, your age, that is so many different balls in the air. You've done already so many different things. I cannot wait to see where you go, because I can only imagine fast forward to your 40s, what it's going to look like.
Well, I better be retired.
Probably will be, to be honest.
Oh yeah, someone buy this fucking business. No, not yet, but yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll sell to a publisher or switch gears into something else. I have no idea what I'll do. But yeah, we'll see.
You've kind of done it all, so I'm kind of excited. So my last question is piece of advice that you would give somebody that's brand new into entering the gift show world. Let's say booth.
Find a friend. And if you don't have a friend, DM me. I'm happy to answer questions. But seriously, ask all the questions. If you're applying to a show and you're unsure about things, a lot of the show reps are super kind people, the people selling you their space. Just ask questions. I think I asked so many questions. I didn't know how to do a damn thing. And I was 23 when I did my first booth. And the girl, her name's Priscilla, that works at Vegas. I don't know if you've met her.
I have.
I probably emailed her 30 times before the show started, because I was like, how do I get my things? Where do I ship my things? Where does anything go? When I don't know anything. So ask questions. Also, I would say approach them probably a little bit conservatively, only because they're really expensive and it takes a solid 2 years of doing a show consistently to have people know who you are. And it's important I would rather put all my eggs into one show than do 4 different shows. Because I think being consistent at one show and getting in front of those same people, like in Vegas, you never saw me, but this next time you might see me. And so like committing to one show, you're going to get those people that missed you the first time. And yeah, and also just don't cheap out on your display. Make it unique, make it colorful. I have one friend, she shall not be named, and she is the cheapest bitch when it comes to decorating her booth. And she refuses to order a 20-gallon thing of paint to paint her walls. And when I outsell her at the last Atlanta show, I'm like, so you're going to do paint now? It literally, like your display matters. So those are my takeaways. Ask questions. DM That's So Andrew. If you're thinking about doing a show, I'll give you all the tea. I love talking about it. It's not one of those weird things where I'm like, oh, ask me anything. No, literally, DM me. I'll tell you what space is good. I'll tell you what shows ask. I'll do it all. And just be intentional with the design, because you're literally trying to stand out amongst thousands of people. And no matter what you're selling, it's not the first time someone's seen it, especially cards or mugs or candles. I would never pay again to be in that industry. So many candle people, and you can't smell shit through a screen. So it's hard. It's hard. And wholesale is tight numbers. Your profit margins are lower than selling retail, but it's all about the volume. So
that is like some of the best advice we've gotten, because it's, the wholesale shows, all of that is such, and to be able to say, I'll spill the tea, because a lot of people really hold some of that information really close to themselves. And it's like, as an industry, I feel like at one point everyone's had to ask a question. And I feel like the people that won't answer, or like, when you ask, can you tell me why you wouldn't sign me, or any suggestions, like it just doesn't seem, when we're all in the same industry, you've had to ask those questions, like just answer the questions. And the fact that you're like, absolutely, here's, ask and I will tell you, is huge, because not a lot of people are willing to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I will add one more thing is, if you are not a salesman, you need to bring a friend that is. This business, it's not. I don't care what product you have. You could be selling gold bricks. But if you do not have the personality, that's what people buy, is they buy into you and they buy into the brand. So I also want to throw that snippet in there. If you're a bitch and you don't know how to do customer service, go wait tables for 2 weeks before the show. You have to.
Amen to that. I'm not going to.
For you.
Andrew, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at That's So Andrew with an underscore at the end on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook if you're a boomer, but I don't post there. And that's soandrew.com. If you're trying to buy things retail because you're not a store, you can look for my Etsy shop, but there's only like 20 things on there. So best of luck. Find a store near you. Go to Spencer's or Barnes & Noble. You can find my stuff there.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I so appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I so appreciate it.